Welcome back to Business Owners Speak. Today, I'm really happy to have with us Valerie Perlowitz with International Holding Company. Valerie, how are you today?
I'm great. And yourself?
I am really good, thank you. Really appreciate you taking the time to be on. And like I do with everyone, if you could start, tell us a little bit about you and your business.
So thank you for the opportunity to do this. I am an electrical and computer engineer by degree. So I started my career as a technologist, and then I went to work for some large companies working on the B-1B bomber, the presidential helicopter. So I did a lot of work like that, worked for IBM for a while. And then I had the opportunity to start my company. So I started a company called Reliable Integration Services, and I bootstrapped three of those companies, and the fourth one I raised capital for. And long story short, after successfully growing them, I exited them. And I think I did a pretty good job on that. So I decided to go work for a special purpose acquisition company, which is a blank check company. For those that don't know, it is you raise money and then you go out and buy what's called a platform company.
Mhm.
So it's an interesting place to work. I was actually running operations and was a director on the board doing their strategy and their IT and their security. Decided to go and get an executive MBA at Harvard. That helped me with my management style, if you will.
Mhm.
Went and got an engineering degree in cybersecurity since I was doing that. And then I went to work for an investment banking company in the cyber arena. We were commercializing technology, so I was involved with venture capital and private equity for companies we were buying. So that all laid the groundwork for International Holding Company, where I developed a proprietary methodology for taking companies through their strategy, their 3 to 5 year plan, and then their tactical plan, which is their 0 to 36 month plan with metrics. The whole concept is to build your company deep before wide, because that's how you get more shareholder value, more
Mhm.
value for the owner. And then I've been doing that. I've been helping companies do fundraising, and I've worked in a variety of industries. So, I think I've rounded the world one more time. So I'm here to hopefully get some other businesses to the success I had.
Yeah. So, how long have you owned International Holding Company?
About 10 years now.
10 years. Okay, and who is like a good target for you for future client?
Probably a company around 10 to $15 million that has a positive EBITDA is a good company for me.
Okay. And I'm curious, your proprietary method for helping these companies. Talk to us about why they would call your company in the first place.
Well, a lot of companies don't, a lot of owners unfortunately don't think about the end and their end game and what that's going to look like. And this teaches them how to keep the end in mind, and also for them to look at what they're doing and find out how they create repeatable growth. So that was why somebody would call me, is they want to learn what they're doing right, what they're not doing right, and how to, you know, do it better so they get more value for themselves and their company.
Sure. And so what does that guidance or education or training from you look like?
It's a sit down session in the beginning to understand what their goals and objectives are, themselves and for their company. And then we look at, developing their strategy. What does that look like when you get to the third year? Do you have a lot more money? Do you have a lot more cash flow? What is it that you want to get out of this? And then how do you do it, right? I mean, that's the whole secret sauce, if you will. How do you get to that next level? And that's what the methodology tries to help these people learn.
Interesting. And so, if you could shed some light on what you see a lot of business owners struggling with, or I mean, you mentioned the exit, the end game, but in the moment, operationally, talk us to us about some habits and some mistakes that you often see people making.
A lot of the mistakes come from wanting to please the customer. So if you're doing X for the customer and that is your core competency, and then the customer says, hey, can you do Y? And Y is not part of your core competency, and you do that, then you start building your company wide. And by building it wide, you don't get the same amount of value you would when you build it deep. So part of it is learning how to say no. And the other part of it is um, keeping that end game in mind. What are the guardrails that you can tell your employees that they're okay to work within so you don't micromanage them. A lot of owners micromanage their staff. So this gives them a way to create metrics and then to judge the employees against those metrics and how they're doing to see one, if they're working, because we live in a remote world now, right? You
Yeah.
need to know how people are working and if they're working. So it helps create that kind of a mindset.
All so important. And, a lot of what we do as well, I hear very similar and see very similar things. And um, I always wonder with people that help other business owners, are you um, eating your own cooking, right? So do you take all the principles that you help teach and guide and train on and implement them in your own business? Or sometimes do you catch yourself like, gosh, I should be doing that?
Uh, yeah, we all think about that. I mean, I'm not going to say I'm perfect, but I do implement what I teach, if you will. And, if I don't do it, how can I explain to somebody else how to do it?
Yeah.
So, you probably keep hearing me say the end game and keep the end in mind, and that's my mantra.
Keep the end in mind. And, I'd like to go a little further on that because we help people build sellable businesses, right? Whether you want to sell them or not, whenever you want to be done with it, why not make it as valuable as possible? So,
Mhm.
what are some of the things you help people with to make the end more valuable?
One of them is cash flow, keeping an eye on what you're doing to make sure it is generating the amount of money you need to keep going. Um, the other thing is judging how the employees work, setting milestones for their work product and measuring them on a weekly, a monthly, a quarterly basis so the projects are getting done. Those are two fairly critical metrics that we help develop for our customers.
Sure. Beautiful. And then how do your relationships work? Do you work like on a monthly advisement? How often are you dealing with the owners?
I usually deal on a monthly retainer after we get through the project, which I do as a fee-based success, I should say a success fee-based contract, right? Making sure we get there first. And then it goes into a monthly retainer, and depending on how much time the owner wants to spend with me will depend on how much I charge. But, even then, there's times where somebody needs somebody to talk to. Being a CEO and an owner is very lonely. And I like to be there for my clients, no matter, what, as long as it's, reasonable.
Yeah, interesting. Um, so when you think back to when you were working and all that, did you say multiple engineering degrees?
Hmm.
Yeah,
I actually have three.
three. I think you said three. So you're a learner. That's fantastic. But
Yes.
took the leap. I think you worded it as I had the opportunity, but going from a paycheck to owning a business, how did you mentally kind of get to the point where you're like, yes, this is the right move. I'm going to do it.
Um, It took a while. To be honest with you, my father owned his own business and I had worked in it for a long time, and I said, I'll never own a business. So I had to overcome that, that hurdle. And then it was just sitting down and seeing, could I really do this? And what, 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 what would I get out of this if I did it? What is it going to get me? And what is the end game for this contract?
Yeah.
And it made sense at the time, so I took the leap.
And Valerie, do you have a team working with you?
I'm a real strong believer in virtual teams.
Yeah.
I do this methodology very well. I teach companies how to build their companies deep. But there are other people who do management training, that do different kinds of management training. There's people who are CFOs, who are marketing experts, and I like to bring in the experts. So I use other companies that have the same idea in mind that I do of building their companies deep.
Mhm. And let's expound on that a little bit. Can you give a definition to deep instead of wide?
Um, Deep, for example, let's say you're in a consumer product, and you're doing dog treats, because I did dog treats for a while, one of my businesses. So building it deep is, so I did treats for small dogs, and then I developed a food for small dogs. So my focus was on everything about small dogs. So what could I do about small dogs? Foods, treats, um, uh,
Boys.
toys, thank you. Everything that had to do with them, because they were different than big dogs. So that's building something deep.
Interesting. Okay. And the mistake people made is try to go wide. And you mentioned um, saying yes to areas of work that aren't their expertise. And so their scope gets beyond their ability and beyond what they're getting paid for, right? How do you, when people have done that too much and now they're over delivering to clients, how do you advise them on how to get that back righted in terms of either financially or scaling back their services?
Sure, it's since you really can't go back and what somebody was doing, you can't stop that project, but you can not take on more work. And you can not take on new clients that want that type of work. It's hard. I'm not saying it's easy, but at the end of the day, when I used to sit across the table looking to buy companies, it would break my heart to see companies who just did everything their customer wanted, and I was looking to buy a certain customer set or a certain, employee base, and I couldn't do that at 100% value for the company. So I had to, start subtracting work that they were doing that wasn't of interest to me. And it would just break my heart to see these, people who had spent their entire lives building companies not get the value out of what they were building. and they hadn't known any better.
Yeah, that's a really good point. So what would you say is the biggest challenge in your business right now?
Um, it is about finding customers because a lot of time the owners don't really think they need help. So they're trying to figure out, what it is that is of value. So it's still a challenge to find the right customers.
Yeah, I think everybody would agree with that, especially in a service like yours where they have to be self-aware enough to know that, they may need a partner.
Hmm.
Um, all right. And so how about some advice or words of wisdom for other small business owners that may be struggling or they can't seem to grow? Like, what's some advice you would give?
The advice I would give is to, take a breather, take a breath, sit down, try not to think about the company for a few minutes, just and then come back to it and really set out why you're doing this, what it is you want to get out of your company, and then, you know, figure out what are you doing today and is that moving you towards that direction of what you want to get? Do you want to build a lifestyle business, meaning you're just taking the money out yourself, right? You're not leaving the money in the company. Or do you want to grow the business to take it to an IPO? Or do you want to just take the business to sell it in a few years and take some money off the table? So those are the things to think about. And from there, you can hire, you know, international holding company and myself to come in and help you figure out what is the best way to get there. What's the plan and how are you going to work the plan? And while you're doing it, you're going to build excitement with your employees because they're going to understand what the role is that they play, and they're going to get real excited about doing that.
Yeah. Well, that's a perfect way to end this interview, Valerie. Great advice. And hopefully people listen because I think you said a lot of smart things that business owners can benefit from. So, Valerie Perlowitz with International Holding Company, thank you so much for your time today.
Thank you so much. I appreciate it.
My pleasure.